The product manager position is one of the most high-paying positions in tech. Many existing CEOs today were PMs in the past. Satya Nadella, for example, was a PM. Sundar Pichai was a PM. So this is the CEO of Microsoft, the CEO of Google. But that does not mean that being a PM is now a golden ticket to becoming a CEO of a company, and that's why I will try to explain the day-to-day tasks of a PM in this video, what I do as a product manager at Microsoft. And so you will hopefully be able to get an insight as to whether you would actually enjoy such a role, because it's quite ambiguous as to what they do, not that much information out there. So I'll share the nitty-gritty details and let's get started. But just before, let me just explain how PMs came about in the first place. So if we dial back a long time ago, Procter and Gamble had a CEO, but what they wanted was brand men. And whilst that's not the most inclusive naming at the time, but what they wanted was, instead of just having a CEO leading the direction of the company, they wanted brand men. And so these brand men became akin to how now people say PMs are like mini CEOs. And so they would lead on different parts of the organization, where they would be looking at the marketing, the customer side of things, trying to tie up engineering and all of this. And so now you have product managers at big tech companies and companies not in tech as well. And it's quite a popular role, and there was a time where companies tried to get rid of PMs. I believe that was the case at Google. They tried to remove the PMs, but it didn't really work out. And so product managers are very helpful for a team and an organization to be able to function. And so that's how it really came about. So how does the product management role fit into a company such as Microsoft, a big tech company? Let's take, for example, a specific product that Microsoft offers, which is Windows. So we have Windows 11 now, and say, for example, we have an engineering team and they want to develop a feature. Maybe it's the widget bar or the start menu, right? So how do we know what to do next with the start menu? We're not just going to be sitting at our desks all day and think, hey, I just thought of this cool feature. Wait, let me just have a shower, and this is a thought that just popped into my head. No, you need to go ahead and listen to your customers. You need to look into what the market wants. You need to look at competitors. You need to understand where everyone is having pain points. Now, with those pain points, you want to now start looking into different solutions, thinking about how we can tackle these pain points and come up with solutions. Sometimes customers will have their own solutions, sometimes they won't. But also at the same time, if we think back to Henry Ford and the idea of having the first ever car, right? So Henry Ford, like there's this problem of, you have horses. At the time there was no cars, right? So the idea of inventing a car, no customer perhaps would ever think of that, because they would just think, we have a horse, we need more carrots to make the horses go faster. But instead, what we need to do as product managers is now look at this pain point and think, okay, can we create something? This is now you being able to be really creative and think about all these pain points and then come up with some solutions. Now these solutions, you as a product manager perhaps might feel, okay, you need to work on all of these yourselves. How are you going to come up with this stuff? Well, you do this by looking at competitors, you look into what technology is available, you look into what the trends are in the market, you look into what is available. You talk to your engineering team, maybe they have been looking into stuff themselves, and this is not just a one-person thing now. As a product manager, you want to work with different teams, different people, and through all of this stuff, interacting with so many people, it actually is really useful for you to be able to come up with lots of different ideas. So as a product manager, it's about thinking about the what, what's the problem, and what are we trying to make, and the why. Why is it's because it's solving this problem? Is it because there was a business justification or requirement from top down in the hierarchy of your organization? But maybe the customer is like, okay, in the start menu, I want to be able to see my relevant files. A customer could complain that, the start menu, I want it to be able to be on the left side of my screen instead of just the middle. And so Windows, Microsoft, the product managers can go ahead and be like, okay, there was this current customer complaint that we can't move the start menu, for example. We know previously that there have been customers who are used to this behavior, so let's make it so that they have an option, or that by default it's in a certain position. So being able to understand and iterate off customer feedback and pain points is a continuous discovery process, and with time customer pain points change. And so yes, as an engineering team, you can have engineers go ahead and interact with customers, but that's not their day-to-day job. A product manager is more so responsible for interacting with the customers, being their advocate for the customers in the engineering discussions when talking to leadership, etc. And so that's pretty much the customer side of things. But of course, yes, you can have meetings with customers all of the time, and that's going to be your qualitative data. But you also want quantitative data, and this can be in the form of metrics. For example, I use Crystal Query Language, I use Azure DevOps Queries, and a whole host of other available insights which I can get from how our customers use our products. And from that, I want to be able to understand, okay, what was going on well with the product in terms of, okay, was it slow, but also what is the most used part of our product, which parts of our product are they not using, is there a reason, what's the why as to why things are not being used, what's the why as to why things are being used, what do they like, what don't they like, what can be improved. So now you have all this data from quantitative data and qualitative data, and now this is where you can feed back to the engineering team. You can work with an engineering manager to be able to come up with solutions, architecture decisions, etc. And so when I say architecture, this also might sound kind of scary. Not everyone has to go into architecture discussions and these things. The product manager role, like I said, can be quite flexible between the team and the existing organization and different companies. So it doesn't really mean that you have to be technical, but I do think it does help, because say if your team is technical, it doesn't hurt to know what they talk about, and if you don't know this stuff, it can be quite hard to navigate. But anyway, that's something you can learn, and it comes with doing the job, etc. So in terms of this, you are, like I sort of have been saying, you are the biggest advocate for the customer. You are also a big representation, public representation of your product to your customers, the public, to leadership, etc. So you do hold and bear a lot of responsibility to make sure you are also quite accurate with what you say. You are able to tell the customers, the leadership, what your future roadmap is, what prioritizations are, and also advocate for your product itself to be able to expand in the market and to expand into other avenues and to get more buy-in from leadership, etc., to make sure that your product is being prioritized, that is not being ignored, and it's being and having the visibility that it needs across the organization. What other tasks do you do as a product manager? So you're not just talking to customers all day, you're doing documentation, making sure that people are able to understand how to use your product. I work, for example, with the engineers in my team who are doing the front end and the back end, a mix of different things, and so I like to also show demos of our product if I can. I like the ability myself to be able to contribute to code if I want, and that's something I do as well. If there are feature requests that are needed, sometimes maybe I'll just do it myself, or maybe it's to do with privacy or security, because that's another thing about product management, is you need to look after the privacy and security of your product. Now, this can be one of those things where it differs. Maybe your engineering manager or your team deals with the product security and privacy to make sure that it's adherent to GDPR and the California data protection, whatever, or these laws, the ISO compliance things. So there's lots of things which go into product management. And one way to think about it is doing the things which people in your team don't want to do, what the engineers don't want to do, what the engineering manager doesn't want to do. At the end of the day, what you're sort of responsible for is the success of the product. So I feel like if the product fails, then it's my fault. If it succeeds, your whole team is successful. And the reason I say this is because engineers, if they do the coding, then they're not really to blame, right? But if they are building a product which the customers don't want, that's up to me really to be able to find out why they're doing going in the wrong direction. I need to be able to get this information from the customers and steer them in the right direction. And so yeah, there's lots of other things here and there. So it's doing presentations, doing the marketing of your product, figuring out the competitor analysis, and going to meetings and meeting with leadership. And as a PM, you do get quite a lot of visibility. A product manager, I think, will have a more stressful time in terms of, if you're the sole product manager and you have a global customer base, then you have not really any choice but to be available at other times to call with your customers. And that's just one of the caveats. So one way to solve that is to become a PM manager and hire PMs to do that for you. But yeah, that's pretty much what a product manager does. So I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below, and I will try to listen to you as my customers. And maybe if there's a request, I'll do another video. And yeah, bye bye.